It'll be fine.
you'll
Well,
you'll get there eventually. It's
I got the settings. I looked everything up, and my this thingy won't go through my OBS now. Like my OBS updated just now, and it was just like now there's just no. You don't have video coming in here.
Google Hangouts is antiquated. Maybe you're just using old technologies.
Hangouts is like no, the camera is only for me. Um, but yeah, so next time, I was gonna put cats behind me or something, but you know, just
With
gotta take
time.
yeah with time, right? Um, yeah, so Wednesday night chats, chatting about life, the universe, and everything. Struggling is the name of the game apparently. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so I've been dealing with recognition. So my brain chemistry is oscillating again. It was always a very up and down person, and then it just got like permanently broken and down for like 3 4 years. Um, which you know,
Only 3 or 4 years.
yeah, right, just 3 or 4 years of depression, no big deal. Which it's interesting because mania is a deeply unhelpful experience, but golly, it's fun. Whereas depression is a deeply unhelpful experience, and it's a right bummer. So it's kind of like, man, I wish I could have the crazy mania where I think I can take on the entire world and just leave my entire life in shambles, but it's really fun at the time, right?
It was a great time.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Oh yeah, I signed myself up for like 5 projects, and now I'm depressed and don't want to do any of it. All right, but anyway, so I'm oscillating again because I seem to have gotten nutrition stuff right. I think I was a little vitamin D deficient. Basically, was what's going on there. Um, Dealing with a little inflammation and whatnot. Went to the doctor and just chatted with them, had them check everything out. They didn't come back with anything, but in the process of the discussion, kind of got some ideas on some directions I might head with that. So, communicating with your medical professionals. Yay!
that's whoa.
Right? Right? Communicating with your medical professionals. Go on in there. Let them take your bloods and other precious fluids and find out what's going on with you. Um, they can't say enough about that. The positives that can come from that. So having a baseline, having somebody check in like, hey, actually, you should be paying attention to this. Um, but yeah, so I noticed that I was dealing with depression recently because, in addition to the fact that I don't want to do anything, um, is I was having a lot of trouble with money. In that, like, when I'm depressed, money provides zero motivation for me. So, like, go to work, teach people the maths. They give me like checks to pay for my services, and then I don't deposit them because I'm like, eh, I don't want to go all the way over there. Eh.
Brian.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I went to the bank today. It's just like keyed in, like, oh, okay, like I haven't done the deposit in like a month. So yeah, and I should bill people for things and all of those sorts of things. So just kind of like, okay, now I'm hip to that. Plus side, right? Like when you don't notice that you're depressed because you're having a good time, and you have to notice the things in your life that are kind of like no longer giving you the motivations that perhaps you would like. That's okay. Right? That's not the worst thing in the world. Um, but yeah, so that's been a struggle. It's been a challenge. I've been rocking the 5 o'clock shadow for a little while because like just I don't want to go shave. I don't want to mess with that. It's fine to have hair. I'm an adult human male. I can have some hair on my chin.
I feel like facial hair is always the thing where I'm like, oh, I don't want to shave. It's starting to look good. And then it's like, oh, this is looking good. Oh, but I probably look better when I shave. And then I shave and go like, why did I shave? But then it's like, then when I start getting hair again, it's like, oh, I need to shave again. Like for me, facial hair, I never have the correct facial hair. No matter what it is, it's always
No
wrong.
matter, yeah, there's always that little voice in your head has
Yeah.
an angle for you as to why it's wrong. Yeah. Well, that could describe the entire human condition, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what's actually
Just
going
about.
on. The little voice in your head always has an explanation for why it's wrong. And if you just do these other things a little bit differently, then it'll finally be right. We can guess how that turns out. But yeah, so that's what I've been about recently. I was walking home today and little voice in my head was saying, "Ah, you're totally sucking today." And I was like, "I have been to the bank, done my job, and I'm walking home from the grocery store where I purchased nutriments with which to feed myself."
And it's
Like,
not like Doritos,
no,
frozen pizza bites.
no, it was actually like legit food that I could bring up to the little thing, the conveyor belt, and be proud. Like, look at me, I purchased adult things. This is all of my macros and a number of my micros attended to. There are greens.
God, no, that's such a good point because it's so easy to like I don't know, like in my planner, I'll put those little things like, "Oh, go grocery shopping, do this, do that," and so I can check them off and feel good about it. But yeah, then there are those days where you're like, I didn't do anything. All I did was all these things I was supposed to do." And it's like somehow your brain, like your some days your brain is able to trick you and be like, "Yeah, all those things you checked off, how dumb are you for having done those?" And you're like, "Ugh," and it's like, "No, you're supposed to be happy. Like, how did you trick me?"
Yeah, how no. See, that's the thing is that voice in your head is never happy, right? So it tricked you,
Yeah, it's
right?
just the grumpy voice who wants to be grumpy, and
Yeah,
it somehow tricked me,
that's
and I'm like,
just that was drilled into your mind as you came up in the world, right? And it just lives there. And all it does is just grump, right? Like for me, that's the canary in my mind, right? That's when I know like forces are marshaling against me and I need to be wary because some bad times are coming. It's just I start
yeah,
hearing like, I hate this. I hate this. I hate that. I'm just walking along, living my life, and it's like, oh, there's like just like some a weed on the side of the road just growing there, and this voice in my head is like, I hate weeds, and I'm like, no, that one, that's never been true, and two, like, what? Why would I have that intense
like,
relationship with an
how,
arbor? Just some random plant
why
on
would
the
I be so mad about a plant on the side of the road?
right, but because the structure of that thing is just I hate and literally whatever sensory information is coming in, right? So that's all it can do. So that's all it does do. And once in a while, if I'm sufficiently grumpy for other reasons in my life, I believe it. Oh yeah, I hate it when people do that. And it's like, no, that's still the same thing that says like I hate lamp, I hate flower, I hate floor. Like that thing is just firing on one of the rare occasions where it's situationally appropriate, but that doesn't make it any more true than it was when it was saying, I hate weed. Right?
Yeah,
Just somebody's firing off and being a jerk, like I hate that guy. And it's like, no, that's the same pattern of cognition that says all of this other ludicrous stuff. Just because it's in a slightly more sensible context doesn't mean I'm gonna be any more willing to believe it if I happen to be paying attention. Which
yeah, it's learning to catch it more often than not.
yeah,
It's like once you can recognize the patterns, I feel it'll get easier over time. It's just that like learning to recognize it as the pattern for what it is and
well,
not being fooled.
learning to recognize the pattern of thought for what it is, which is a pattern of thought. Right? It's not me hating the plant growing in the street.
Yeah.
It's just this thing that lives in my brain. And it has for as long as I can remember. And it's just that's its life cycle is it just does that. And sometimes I pay attention to it. So it reinforces those neural pathways. So they're likely to fire again when similar situations arise in the future, right? But there's no meaning, there's no content, it doesn't have anything to do with me. It just happens to be in this brain right now and periodically spread to other brains. I'm not paying attention, right? But you hit the nail right on the head there, right? Being aware of it as a pattern.
Yeah. It's
It's
well, I mean, we are just patterns, right? As humans.
yeah, well, we're it's sort of the intersection of a whole host of patterns,
Well, yeah,
right?
I
We
can see
carry
that.
out many thousands of patterns. It would it feels like it would be hard pressed. One would be hard pressed to actually then turn that into one big pattern. I don't know if we have the computational power to recognize the pattern there, but it's just all of these things interacting with each other and firing off, and whichever one happens to grab the bulk of attention right now just fires off and does its thing, and we get some thought or feeling or behavior or
Yeah.
speech or what have you. So paying attention, recognizing which patterns go to unfortunate places and just going, no. So for that one, for the I hate whatever the heck, I just have banished that from the scope of acceptable things to believe, right? Like I don't hate anything. Refuse hate is not part of who I am or what I'm doing. So when I hear I hate, I know that isn't me. Because that's not what I'm about. So easy peasy. Okay. I hate. Yeah, I know who you are. I know what you're about. And I know that you've probably got friends. So let's start paying attention.
That's actually such a wonderful thought I hadn't had yet. I mean, I feel like you've probably said this multiple times too. I feel like I'm just having an epiphany now, but that like anytime, anytime the hate word comes up, recognize that and be like, no, because
Yeah.
there should never be a situation in your life where you do hate something. Like even if something horrible is happening, you shouldn't hate it. You should be focusing on what the problem is and how you make it better. You shouldn't be stopping to like hate things.
Yeah. You ain't got no time for hating. Right? Life is short. And nothing is ever made better by introducing hatred into the mix.
Yeah.
Period. Right? Hate never makes your life better, so don't. Just nope, that's off the table. So when it crops up in here, and I know this isn't me, okay? This is just a thing that spins up in my mind. Fine, that's fine. The fact that something happens to be in my mind doesn't have anything to do with me. All sorts of things were put in my mind at a time in my life when I didn't get any say in what was going on, right? Like I'm just chilling here, just I don't have that many faculties, and I'm wholly dependent upon the people around me to give me the straight dope on what's going on in the universe. And most of those people have their heads up their butts, so they
No,
just dumped a
it's
load of garbage into my brain, and then I'm going to take it personal for the rest of my life.
well, it's not even garbage, it's everything. I was thinking about this today, but it's like growing up and everything, I just always thought about like flying and Superman flying, and I still have daydreams where I go like, "Oh man, what if I could jump and fly?" But I can't, and I would never actually try to jump off of something and fly. But it is just ingrained in my brain this daydream that I can fly, and it is something that will never go away. I've been daydreaming about it since I was a little kid now. That's just in my brain, but I recognize it is just that fun fantasy. And so I think that's the thing is anytime hate happens, I have to be put it into the same category as flying.
Yeah, well, and if you want to talk about like just things that have just been, uh, dumped into our brain, Dennis, as a
Right.
fellow denizen of the Central Valley, uh, were you aware that prices are better at the low price center, Turlock Auto Plaza?
Oh
Because I've heard
god.
that prices are better at the low price center, Turlock Auto Plaza, and if you need a new car, then it's not very far to the low price center. Yeah,
Yeah, it's stuck in
that's
your brain for
that's
forever.
never going away. It's
And
just a stupid
that's cruel
jingle. It
because that
it
was like sleeping back here and then you said it and now it's here and
Yeah,
it's like,
now it's activated and it's going to be popping into your head for the next couple years.
oh yeah, no, it's gonna pop, it's gonna bounce. Like gonna hear other jingles on the radio and then be like, oh, was that other? Oh my god, what have you
Yeah,
done?
I think about that song probably at least 3 4 times a week,
So
right?
we have
And it's just a thing that just got drilled into my brain watching cartoons as a kid, right? And that caliber of information, there are thousands of them in every brain, some more destructive than others. And the thing that's really important is, some just a little piece of mimetic content like that doesn't do anything particularly bad in my brain or your brain might be incredibly destructive in somebody else's brain, right? Because we're all different
yeah.
landscapes, and various information affects different brains in different ways, and so it's really important. It comes up a lot, right? So I have a friend who has recently been sort of struggling with the fact that a lot of people in his community are just like, you need to beat your kids. And he's like, that's not cool, right? Like, that's not cool at all.
Yeah.
All right. And people are like, well, my parents beat me and I'm okay. And it's like, yeah, you're okay because you're one of the people for whom beating doesn't do a lot of damage. But there are people out there who will become psychopaths if you beat them
Yeah.
as children who could have otherwise been totally reasonable, functional adult human beings. All right,
That's
there's enough diversity in the human experience that we need to take all of it into account when we assess a given piece of information. And is it okay to be forcing this sort of information on other people? Um,
Man, that's no, just like that concept, right? Because it's the I mean, if you go back to the jingle, right? All you've done is awaken a beast in me, but someone can be like, "Oh my god, I got my first car there and they gave me a really bad loan and I was in debt for a long time." Right? That jingle could set someone else off where they'd be like, "Oh no," and like
yeah,
spiral them.
that
Uh,
jingle could ruin somebody else's day. Probably a
uh
fair number of other
but
people.
so it is
So if you're from the Central Valley and that just ruined your day, I'm
we're
sorry.
very
It
sorry.
wasn't your intention. It just was an example that was close to hand because that was stuck in my head earlier today. I last heard that commercial, I believe, when I was 9 years old. So
That's the scary thing is how some things so well ingrain themselves and just travel through your memories and time. It's like,
yeah,
what are you doing? I
I'll
still
never.
remember the layout of my house I grew up in, and it constantly invades my dreams. I'll completely forget it, and then I'll have a dream about it. And then for weeks, I'll be thinking about that house, and I'll be like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's very interesting, sort of the associative processing system that our brain is, right? Where it just hooks any two things that are experienced simultaneously just get hooked together.
Yeah.
And so one, if you experience one thing in isolation, it can just pull the other thing up. Smells are really powerful for that. Um, just smell a
Oh,
certain smell and just boom, overwhelmingly, you can have detailed memories get pulled up that you otherwise would have
um,
forgotten.
no, that's a funny one because like downstairs at our house, then like the guest bathroom, there's a soap that has a scent that I still don't know what it's from, but so I try not to use the downstairs bathroom right now. So when I get it, I can have that nostalgia again because I'm trying to place it and I'm like, where was this? And it's like I think it might have been Joby's bathroom when we were still in high school or something. So that's
Mhm.
that other weird thing about nostalgia is all it's done is made me become a crazy person where I'm like, I'm gonna go upstairs to use the bathroom because I don't want that nostalgia smell to go away till I've solved it. So it's weird because right, like I don't remember what that smell was, but it triggers all of these weird memories of my
Yeah.
childhood, and so I'm like, I need to place this. It's
Ah,
wild, and
it,
it's your brain is this amazing thing that has all of that in there. Uh,
yeah, just
yeah,
stored in a completely irregular and
horrible method.
insane file system, right? Like nobody would sit down and design a data storage engine that works the way that a brain does. But what are you going to do? It's what we got. So we have to account for it. We have to figure out, okay, now what is in here? Like, what of these associations are destructive to my happiness, to my life experience? Uh, so here's the thing. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, and I can't remember why. Because I don't know. I live this weird stream of consciousness where people tell me I say things, and I'm like, "Oh, that sounds insightful. Who said that? Oh, that was me. Okay, all right." Like people have come at me like years later, just like, "Dude, you said this thing," and I'm like, "I mean, that sort of sounds like a thing I would say. Sure. I mean, I'll take credit for that, but if I were you, I would just own that and just roll with it." like, but so we're talking about that sort of association, and I was talking about. Um, an experience, which is just sort of the things to look out for slash look forward to. For one time, I was in the monastery, I was meditating, and I was having a very good time, right? Like I was having a good life for a minute, and so one of those things in my brain was just like, you seem to be having a really good life. Would you like to remember this incredibly painful memory from fourth grade? And I was like, no, not even a little bit. It's like too bad.
Yeah, but here it is.
Yeah, it's actually fifth grade, where in fifth grade there was a girl that I had sort of a crush on, uh, and and I was just walking along on the blacktop in fifth grade, and I saw this girl, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and then she's just like, I don't like you, idiot, so stop looking at me. And I was just like, well, my life is over. If I'm just going to turn into a puddle of vaguely human constituents right here and sink it to the earth and never emerge to trouble the surface world again. But it was actually like there was a dude behind me and slightly off who had been like harassing her or something. I came to find out like weeks later, right? So not that long after the initial trauma, but the feel of that had just haunted me for like decades.
It'll
right?
never go away. Yeah.
Right? But I'm just chilling there, and this other little thing in my brain was like, huh, that's not very helpful. And then I'm just sitting there watching this go down as this memory just got like kind of like pulled out of wherever memories are when they're active and pushed into this analytical place and just ripped apart. And all of the emotional content of it was just tossed in the wastebasket. And it's like, here's this thing. You can just remember it now and never feel those feels again. So it's just details. This is just an event that happened. Here's all the details. And it has no emotional association. Right? And it's just, I was like, how do I do that for all of the things?
Yeah, that sounds like magic.
Because I've got about 1 billion embarrassing memories up here that are used at various points in my life to box me in and make me stop having a good time.
So it's basically every day of life. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But if you're an awkward, weird person, which I think is a very large portion of us. But I eventually, fortunately, I was at the monastery. This was my second tour at the monastery, a briefer stay. But I actually, over the course of that like 3 months that I was up there, figured out how to like put that in a box that I could just invoke that anytime I want. And I left there and I went back to Modesto. And I spent 2 weeks in Modesto where I was house sitting for the Lanchesters. And I just walked around Modesto to all of the worst places, like all the places that I had unfortunate associations with. And I just went, do. Oh, here's a terrible memory. There's one. Right, so that's one of those things that's out there.
So that's fascinating because that seems more like you're like attempting to associate the facets of the memory with new memories that don't have the negative association. So then it's like when your brain recalls parts, they'll now be recalling the new memories that aren't associated with the badness. I mean, I guess neither of us is brain scientists, so we can't say that for sure. But
well, it's there's a case to be made that you never actually remember the original events. You just remember the last time you remembered them. And I think that there's something to that. That when you do recall, you bring something up, it gets saved back in the memory back in however our brains store information with the associations that it had in the present. Right?
Yeah.
So it feels like this process exploits that to just deassociate it and then store those things individually. Because I can still call up that awful feeling, right? That's not gone. It's just not linked to these events. And so when I call up that awful feel, it's called up as the awful feel, rather than just this emotion comes along with the memory.
With everything else, yeah.
It just hits me in the gut, right? And isn't bundled up into this nice little package that just has a nice little warning label on it that says awful feel. And I'm like, oh, there's an awful feel right there. Maybe I just won't. So that's so for me, that's just a technique now. I just kind of have to look at a certain spot in my head and I say, hey, can I have a different experience of this? And then it just goes, yeah, loads it, rips it apart, stores all the individual components without the associations. And it's very much Jesus says in the Bible, ask and the door will be open, or knock and the door will be open for you, ask and you shall receive. It's very much that kind of vibe, experientially. But that's just, if you're practicing all this stuff of introspection, you stumble upon these things. Just when you get the ball rolling, somewhat frequently, you stumble upon these kind of cool techniques, right? And it just occurred to me that I don't really talk about that all that much. That I've picked up this whole basket of goodies of just little things that I've learned how to do that are sort of, I don't know.
Share with us the goodies from your basket.
Yeah, they're sort of like super normal. Like they're just not things that people seem to do normally, or talk about. Like, hey, this is a possibility of things that you can do. Where you just get to do certain little things, little tricks, right? Like I can selectively sort of like turn off certain nerve endings. So if something hurts, I can just go like, "Hi, I recognize that the situation is not that great here, but for the moment we can attend to that. So shut up." And then it's just gone for like several hours. Um, and I can do that with hunger pains, which is super unfortunate because then I got so used to doing it that I forget to eat for long periods of time because I'm just like,
Goddamn.
oh yeah, we're hungry. Okay, cool. We're not hungry anymore. Go about life, and then like the next thing I know is that like I'm dizzy from like lack of food. I'm like, oh, this was stupid. Why did I do that again?
Like, oh,
I'm drunk with power.
turns out calories are important.
But yeah, they're just a bunch of like little faculties in there that are available to us as human beings that often go missing because we're spending so much time like wrapped up in the stories about how our life sucks and whatnot. So when you stop paying attention to those stories and start digging around inside your brain, sometimes you run into like little cool techniques that make things that seemed like kind of unattainable. Like because when you first start, you do very much have to do the sort of thing that you're talking about, where you overwrite. Like I'm having this unfortunate experience, so I'm going to overwrite it with a different experience, right?
Yeah.
So I've got this negative association. I'm going to build a positive association, and that's the only way forward when you're first starting out and when you're first really getting a feel for like how to employ the human mind. Like what is the user experience of the human mind? But as you cruise along, you get a more refined sense of what's going on. You can just say like, oh, I'm having an unfortunate negative association. No, I'm not. And that's it. You don't have to do the work of overwriting it with something because it's just gone. So that's a thing to look forward to. If you put the time in, you will eventually start having those kinds of experiences, and they kind of you get to a point where like when you're first starting off, the upkeep is really high. You have to work really hard for a pretty decent chunk of time of just constantly like fighting against this. But then you start to pick up these little power ups basically in your mind that make it so that the amount of upkeep that's required to maintain a nice, yeah, this is going pretty good, just drops and drops and drops and drops and drops to the point where it gets experientially really easy. And that's, have you ever read any Taoism?
No, actually, I'm very vaguely familiar with it. So if you wanna,
Taoism's cool, but Taoism is very much a description of the end state of a process like this. So Taoism is just like for the man of Tao, life is easy, and they just flow with life as it comes, and blah blah
yeah,
blah blah. Right? And it's like, okay, that's great, but how did that guy get there? Right? Like, was he just born that way? No. Well, he worked really hard for like a decade, and now everything's really easy. It's like, oh, okay, can you talk to me about what that work looks like?
yeah. What was that decade?
Because I'm not there yet. I'm not having that experience yet. I'd love to get there, but I'm not, right? But yeah, so a lot of what we're talking about is how if you're starting over here, how do you start to move along to get to the end state? But the thing that I feel like I don't express enough is it gets to a really good place, right? And it gets to a place that's actually pretty easy um, to keep it rolling on the positive, right? So I feel like it just occurred to me recently, like, man, I kind of be a little bit of a Debbie Downer sometimes. I'm always just like, it's really hard. There's all sorts of bad things working against you in your mind. It's hard, and it's like, but eventually, and I feel like you have to say that it's not fair to people to just be like, yeah, you should just be happy, and then nobody has that experience, and everybody gets to feel like a failure. That's not that cool.
Well, it's practicing happy. We have to
Yeah,
practice these things.
but the
I guess maybe
practice is
it's practicing dot 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 happy. Like you're
yeah.
practicing all of this stuff.
Practicing happens for a fair chunk of time, and it's pretty fun. Most of the practices are actually a lot more present or a lot more pleasant than the absence of those practices. Um, but then you do arrive at a place. You just sort of pop up one day, and you're like, "Whoa, this is all a lot easier than it used to be. That's cool. I really have something, right?"
Yeah.
That was for me. Um, I'm hoping to see if the schedule can be compressed a bit. For me, took about a decade of just like, okay, I'm really going to try to do it now. I've read all the books that I think that I can read, and I've accomplished nothing. So, like, let me try to actually do some of the things that they say to do in the books, right? Because, like, I've just been reading about practices that are supposed to end up in happiness and never doing any of it. Just like, yeah, if I just read about it enough, it'll just happen, right? Um, so from the time I was like, maybe I should actually start doing this stuff to the point where I was like, oh, I did this stuff. This is good. This is a good experience. That was like a decade. Um, but I was going about it in a very bass-ackwards, ham-fisted way, just sort of setting up off every blind alley ever. So, ideally working together. Once I got to the monastery, it was like 10 months of I kind of knew some stuff and I had some insights because I had been working for the previous, 8 years at that point. I've gotten some stuff.
Yeah.
I was doing okay. I really doing. I felt like I was doing okay, and then I got there and I started assessing things, and I'm like, oh, I'm not really okay. But and then like 10 months later, I'm like, this is legit, right? And all it took was participating in a community where people were all working towards that, right? So that I could see the commonalities, the things that I was experiencing that I thought were unique about me. That it's like, oh, that person's experiencing it, and that person, and that person, and that person, and that person. And it's not fun for any of us?
Some sort of pattern here.
Yeah, wait a minute. That voice has got to not be legit. If we're all experiencing it, and everybody's experiencing it as a thing that's really unique to them, and it's miserable for everybody, okay, I'm going to just write that down in my little notebook and be on the lookout for it and pay attention every day. Sorry, this has been a long ramble.
No, and I think it's all relevant and good stuff, just in the concept of, hopefully there's a few things that resonate with people, right? Like, well, how you were just wrapping it up right there is like, wait a second, this is a thing that is like some awful unique experience to me that I'm recognizing everyone is experiencing. Be like, oh, like that's, yeah, it's kind of it's the weirdest part about it, because your brain and your life is so into trying to tell you you're having this unique experience and it's all you and it's just happening to you, and oh my god. But it's like, oh, it turns out that that's everyone. We are all our own little unique universe inside of our skull.
Yeah. Well, everybody's constructing their own universe, right? But
yeah,
most of us are constructing mostly the same universe. The facets of the universe that suck actually mostly are in common. The number one learning for me at the monastery was I'm not that special. Actually, the processes that are ruining my life are the same as the processes that are ruining everybody else. And that's really great, right? For me, that was super liberating because it's like, oh, awesome, right? Because I felt like I was uniquely a failure. So actually, everybody else is struggling with the same stuff. Rad!
Everyone feels like they're a freaking failure. Well, not everyone, but
No, some people are manic and other people do cocaine.
So you're saying cocaine solves all the problems? There we go. You heard it here first. Practice
brings its own problems, as I understand it. I've never actually gotten too involved. Psychedelics, yes. Hardcore stimulants, no. I knew too many tweakers coming from the Central Valley.
Oh no, yeah.
It's just like, no, actually, I'll skip that one. I've seen the outcome too many times.
Oh god, yeah. I feel like we could talk about that a lot, but I feel like we had a unique learning experience growing up that helped Well, I mean, and some people they succumb to it, but for me, it was like I got to see the effects of it so much that it was like, oh, okay, you don't do that because it's like it is guaranteeing this short-term super happiness, like this magical, like there's literally a magical pill that's making you happy, but then it's like, oh, like after 15 minutes, like you come crushing back down to reality and everything sucks,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
just
but
anywho,
hard, better living through chemistry is a lot harder to accomplish than the slogan suggests. So,
yeah.
leave that to consultation with medical professionals if you have a seriously distressing. But otherwise, try to change your problems in software rather than hardware. So I don't know that I have any other rambles. You got?
Well, I mean, we've already been going for over half an hour. I mean, like,
Oh, good
I
morning.
can, yeah, we can. I mean, I can probably bring up some stuff for next time because I want to get on. Like, it's just, I think I still need time to process it, but it's just been a very hard week for me, and that's kind of that thing of like trying to figure out where the lessons are and trying to overcome it. Especially like, I just to get into like a little bit of quick stuff. We had a fire breakout on Monday, very close to our home here, which I've learned a lot of things in these last few days, like own a fire safe, so you're not like scrambling around looking for your social security card and your
Oh,
birth certificate and stuff, like to ensure it doesn't burn down in your house. It's just a great thing to have. They're only like $30. Uh, but yeah, it really spooked me out because it was like, oh, this fire started, and California's on fire, sure. But then it's like, oh, this is where I live, is where that fire is. Like, oh, like when I drove home that night, you could see the fire from my road, and it was like, oh, oh, and
oh,
it puts like a lot of really scary things into perspective. And like, for example, like we weren't under evacuation yet, and I mean, obviously, I'm here, so we're fine. Luckily, the fire went the other way. It started here and went away, like by pure luck of the wind. Um, literally, it's the wind. If the wind was blowing the other way, this house wouldn't be here. But it was like when I was in my room, I was like, "What do I save? What do I do?" And it's like, "Oh, I have all these things. Like, how do you choose? Like, where do you go? Because if you have to start your life over again, how do you how do you decide what's worth saving?" And it was very difficult. And I ended up just I grabbed my laptop, my hard drive, and like I said, like scrambled around to find my birth certificate, my car title, my social security card, all that stuff. Which once again, now I've learned that lesson. Keep that all in a thing that is fireproof. Uh,
I wish I'd learned just to keep them all in a thing because
yeah, no, they were all
last
in
time I moved, it's all gone. If I lose my passport, I'm basically stateless.
yeah, so it turns out you can buy a little box for like $30 that's super tough and resilient. But yeah, it was like, okay. But the big thing was I ended up, yeah, I grabbed my laptop, I grabbed those documents, and then I ended up just grabbing uh one little 12 by 12-inch box with like all of my notepads and my writings and stuff, and then a backpack full of clothes. And that was it. And because before I was like, do I grab my Super Nintendo games? I've had these since I was a kid. Do I grab my old photos? Like, do I get a video game console? What do I do? And it was like, no, that's there are so many things that can be replaced in life. Get the things that will make it easier to replace the things in your life, and then those things that are irreplaceable. So it's like, oh yeah, like the computer, the documents that prove I'm me, great. Like if I need to redo anything, there we go. And then I just grabbed all my notebooks because I'm like, these are the things I've been writing over 15 years. It's all my memories and ideas. I can get a new copy of Mario Kart 64 and it'll
Yeah,
be the same copy of Mario Kart 64. I can't get back what I wrote down in a journal 10 or 15 years ago. And but it really made that perspective of it's like, oh, what's actually important in life? Like what matters? And it was really scary and crazy. Uh and once again, it was like, oh yeah, luckily the fire didn't come this way, but it was like one of several really, really heavy things to happen this week. So it's just been kind of like, oh God. But yeah,
that
like
one,
that's
that one though, that's a free perspective check.
oh yeah, because I didn't
That's
lose
the frame
anything,
I,
right?
yeah, that's the frame I would put that in and be like, oh man, had an incentive to like actually really sit down and evaluate what's important to me in my life, and my life didn't get screwed up.
Yeah, no, I got to
A
have the
win.
experience because, like, I had moved a year ago and I trimmed down everything I owned a lot to just like the things I really love. Like my art supplies, like my old video, like all my classic video games, stuff like that. But so then when it came down to like, oh, now you've already trimmed down your life a lot, but now you can only pick a few things. I was like, ah. So yeah, but I mean, I guess like my perspective there is like, yeah, it's maybe people need to take some time to think about what it is that truly makes them happy and makes them them and helps them grow. Because it's probably not like those 300 DVDs you have, but maybe it is. But like for me, it was like, oh yeah, I can see all those movies are on the internet. I can get anything on Amazon I lose. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, right, right with you. Although some of my math books would be pretty sad.
Oh,
Even it could, mainly because I haven't read them yet. Someday I'm going to understand this bloody book.
I did think about taking some books, but I was like, no, let's be realistic here, because I was like, I can fit so much in my trunk, but then it was like, no, you need to leave space because what else might happen? Excuse me. But yeah, like I don't know, because yeah, there's like plenty of books. What is it? I think only like 20% of the books on my bookshelf I've actually read. But I'm actually keeping track of that now because I'm trying to read at least 1 or 2 books a month off of my bookshelf to get that higher. So I guess that's another lesson for everyone. Hey, we all love buying books. It's actually not too hard to spend some time reading it as well. Plug in your cell phone far away from where you are so you can't check it every 5 seconds, and sit down with a good book, and I swear you can get lost in it and you won't need to be on Facebook or anything like that. That was one of the hardest things for me when I started trying to read again, was I was constantly like, maybe I should just look at social media again. Maybe I should check Reddit really quick. But it's like, oh, let me plug in my phone on the other side of my room and lay down. Okay, cool. Now I can actually just read and leave the phone alone for a while. It's so hard.
My other thing that I did today, in addition to going to the grocery store and going to work and going to the bank, making an appointment for a future time at the bank, is I wrote a proof today. Been working on improving my differential equations because I suck at it. Because I was going to take differential equations, which is like the cornerstone class for all physics, apparently. I came to know many years after I had the opportunity to take it. And one of my professors was like, no, don't take that. Take differential geometry with me because I need one more person or they'll cancel my class. They both got differential in the name.
That's a great reason to take a class.
Right? And it turned out so differential geometry is cool and you need it to do general relativity, but differential equations is not as cool. But you need it to do literally everything if you want to do physics. And so it's like I've been trying to do like some just hobbyist, like I just kind of want to understand these physics, and so I'm like trying to do classical mechanics, and I'm like, what's that thing? I don't know how to solve this problem. Why do I always run into a brick wall? And then I finally got hit to the fact that it's like, you don't know how to do differential equations nearly as well as you need to. Okay, so I've been doing that. Got a book from Russia. That is a very abstract treatment of the subject, and so I've been like muddling my way through it, and I proved one today. So I'm well on my way to reading some of those math books that I have on my shelf. So I'm with you. Yeah. We're both trying to move towards actually reading some of the books that we've purchased. I've got this one keystone that's holding me back, and then I got all of these fun books to get through.
Dude, I don't know, and reading is fun. Like it's a nice escape. It feels so good because I don't know, I guess in the change from reading on the internet all the time, everyone's trying to get your attention and get you to look, get you to click. A book, they're already assuming you bought it, so they're not trying to pull any punches. They're just trying to give you what they got.
It's not 10 things that you won't believe.
On paper. Like a book is just this wonderful, intimate experience where like it's written under the assumption that you've already bought and paid for it and want to read it. So they're not trying to trick you into reading it. And it's just, to me, it feels so much more awesome and intimate. But I guess that's just after years of the internet now. I'm like, oh man, this is so novel and interesting.
The book is a product, right? Anything you read on the internet is a loss leader to get you onto their site,
Yeah.
and then you are the product. They're selling your attention to advertisers.
Yeah.
Very different incentives. When you're producing content that is designed to be given away under the assumption that you can use it to monetize another human being, versus here's just a thing that I think is valuable enough that you will pay me for it.
And it's funny because for years I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm not really reading books, but I read so many articles online and blah, 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 blah." But it's like, "Oh, no, yeah," like, after I got back in, like, this year, I've been doing the thing of read at least 1 book a month. It's no, like, books are it is so different, and it's don't get me wrong, I still love reading, like, articles and news and stuff, like, on the internet, but it's like, it is so very different to read a book. Like you for exactly what you just explained is you don't feel like you're being sucked or tricked into anything. No one's trying to expand their word count to hit a certain word count threshold and that sort of stuff. Like it is just this is just someone who wrote something down and they're yeah, because they were trying to share it with you. It's great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or
I
read
don't know.
books.
Yeah, read books.
That's what we got to in the end.
Read a book.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here.
Yeah. Have a good night, everybody.
Cheers.